All right. Okay. So we're live. What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be discussing quite a contentious little topic, and that is old school FMA fighters versus new school FMA fighters. Who would kick whose ass? And joining me today is Datu Tim Hartman, representing the losing side, the old school fighters. Before we get started, dopest FMA intro in all of history.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished.
Get up. Never got no Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh,
Get up. Get up.
Launch the counterattack.
Datu Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. All right, this should be an interesting conversation, huh?
Yeah.
All right. All right. First of all, how are things? How are things in the modern Arnis land?
I don't know. I don't talk to them.
No,
I just do me.
come on, come
All good
on.
by me. I just got back from Florida. I was at a convention down there, business convention, and I was asked to teach at that one. And I did a seminar at another school that both schools are affiliated with us. So that went well. I'm getting. We have a tournament tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So, we're taking my guys out to compete in an open martial arts tournament, which also has stick fighting in. So we're looking forward to that. And there's always something going on, you know.
Awesome. I think I like this view better. Okay, so I posted something on my Facebook page, which seems to be the driver of a lot of great conversations in Filipino martial arts. I post a lot of things that could be construed as disrespectful or how dare he say that? I have about, I don't know, maybe just under 3,000 friends, but 7,000 people following me on my personal Facebook page.
Okay.
And I post something like, I personally think that today's contemporary new school Filipino martial arts practitioners and fighters would absolutely wipe the floor with any of the legends. Now, before we get into the discussion, right, we're going to be talking about people who are no longer here. And I want to say that we want to do this respectfully, right? Just like how we talk about Bruce Lee and all these legends in fighting. This is not meant to be insulting. I think it's a nice little thought process where we can exchange ideas.
It's a dialogue.
It's a dialogue, right? So any of you KI people listening, calm down. That was another issue. Man, crybabies. Okay, so let's talk about it. I think that the new school contemporary fighters that we have today would beat the legends.
Okay. If we're talking wearing protective gear and stuff like that, obviously the new school fighters have grown up with that. I can see that. First thing you'd have to do to make things fair, though, is make sure that there'd be weight categories. Combat sports have weight categories.
Okay.
So you can't take some knuckle dragging Neanderthal who swings a sledgehammer all day, put him against people. He might be 100 pounds bigger than them. That doesn't make him a good martial artist. That just makes him maybe a better athlete or something. So if we're talking fighters, we have to make sure that everything is equal.
For sure. And now, before we continue, let's set the stage here.
Okay.
We're not talking about machete fights, right?
Okay.
We're not talking about that, because if we were talking about machete fights, then we would get rid of weight classes and it would just be machete fight. And in that case, the stronger, bigger, more agile opponent has an edge, in my opinion.
They do, but we're going to talk about that because I have some good information about that.
Okay, great. But let's frame this as first. Let's frame it as stick fighting, and we're going to talk about stick fighting without armor in just a little bit. Okay.
And that's where the old school guys grew up in.
Well, here's what I think. Okay. There are, first of all, what benefit do you think it might have, or what edge, so to speak, would it have given these old school fighters to have fought without armor?
Well, let's first start with the beginning here. I don't think the same quantity of fighters out there from that era actually fought. Okay. So let's cut through. So I'm going to be the guy. Okay, I'm the crossover guy. I'm not old school. I'm not new school. I came over crossover in the between. So I have the benefit of both worlds.
Okay.
So I'm going to give the people that I know were in fights, that I've had people validate this because I've asked these questions in the past. Hey, Dexter, how you doing? So, one, Anshan Bakan used to fight.
Okay.
I want to talk about him. We're going to circle back to him.
Okay.
Kakoi Kinyete Isingatilio, because we have that match that we talked about the fight that the two of them did that ended like this because grappling, the contract. We talked about that and that, whatever. But it happened.
It happened. It was publicized, and honestly, it ended kind of like in a
I know,
little kitty cat way. Right?
But it does show that was happening. And Remy Pracis. Now,
sure,
there's a difference between being in a fight and being a fighter. So if you're in a bar and a guy pulls a stick, a bottle, a knife, a sword, it doesn't make him any of those fighters. He's just a combatant that happens to have that tool at the moment.
Sure.
Okay. So I know people like Angel Caballos were in real life situations, were using the craft. I know that Bobby Tabuada had been in real life situations to use the craft. I don't know specifically on them because they don't. I didn't know Angel, and Bobby's never bragged to me about this, nor have I heard his people talk about this. I've never heard about any stick duels that they've had. I've heard hardcore training, but I do know there was a fight, a brawl that he was involved with, and there was armed assailants, but they weren't. It wasn't a stick dueling scenario.
Okay,
so that's the only validation I know of people who actually fought.
Right, which isn't much. Let's be honest, right?
Okay, now, but that doesn't mean others didn't. They had to fight somebody. Okay, so first of all, where this all starts is just after World War II.
Okay.
Well, actually, Angel Caballos used to fight before World War II for the Saavedras. He was the fighter of the Doce Pares Club.
Okay.
I don't know how much fighting was done prior to that.
Okay.
But now you have a group that just came out of World War II.
Okay.
Our knee starts going sideways over there because less and less people do it because more and more people are getting injured doing it.
Okay.
That's why I just happen to have this today because I was talking to some other people the other day. Why Remy Pracis got all these awards for all these articles and stuff in his pink book. Why is this happening? Is that me or you?
Yeah, put it close to your face. There you go.
Okay, so this.
Put it almost. There you go.
This book.
Yeah. Oh God.
Is that me?
Yeah, because you've got blurred.
Okay. No, oh yeah, because I'm in my office. Let me do this.
You want to see all those toys you have in the background?
No, yeah. There's no toys. There might be a chainsaw in the background. Okay, so you get to see my garbage.
There we go.
So in this book, there's a lot of articles that talk about how Remy saved Filipino martial arts, getting all these awards for popularizing again because it was on the verge of extinction.
Yeah,
because
no doubt.
Because people were getting hurt and they couldn't train, and they went to karate instead.
Yeah.
It was a harder life back then. Just after World War, I mean, Remy learned during World War II, taught by his grandfather.
Okay.
His father and grandfather taught the guerrillas during World War II. We come with an era that there was a lot of physicality.
Okay.
So the fighters that came from that era, I mean, some of these people have taken lives. Hey, June.
Sure.
So when we talk about a certain era, I can only go by the people that I've crossed hands with. I mean, like Bobby Tabuada, he was a bare knuckle fighter before he did stick fighting.
Okay.
So he's got that physicality, even though, I mean, of course, he's in his 70s, but in his prime, you know. So these guys would fight with no gear. And circle back, Anshan Bakan killed 2 people and did time both times, which goes back to that comment of like, I really question these death matches they talk about. I think people were killed. I think fights broke out. I mean, Michael Harone told me stories that he saw with immigrants in the Sacramento area, where they fought and a blade came out and someone didn't survive. But that's not a duel; that's a fight.
Sure, and that happens today.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but I mean, Anshan Bakan, hardcore fighter, and there was 2 deaths, and he did time both times.
Okay, so I completely get that, and not to minimize the kind of grit and resilience and character that's developed growing up in hard times. But if the argument is it was a different era, would you say boxers in that era are better than boxers today?
So here's what I would say.
I don't think so. I think boxers today are better.
Let me use my favorite one.
Okay.
Ali versus Tyson.
Okay.
Even Ali gave Tyson props. It was on the Arsenio Hall show at one time.
Yeah, I posted that. But that's 2 warriors showing great respect for one another.
Okay. You take the 2 out of a box with no prep time. Mm-hmm. I would go with Tyson, hands down, because of the sports medicine advantages. You know, he trained a lot differently. But if you gave him both time to prepare, one, by taking him out of the box, you take out part of Ali's game. He would have been in his head for a year.
Okay.
So we're talking just physicality, but remember, Ali would play the head game. Plus, here's the other thing. Tyson was never tested. He didn't have the rumble in the jungle. They didn't go to war like some of the old fighters did.
Okay, so I get that. Let me address the fact that Mike Tyson also had his own version of the mental game. Yeah. So basically, when we compare 1 for 1, right? It doesn't serve the broader argument, because it could be specifically Tyson, or it could be specifically Ali. It could be, Top Dog versus Angel Cabales. It could be, Jared Wihungi versus, Anshong Bakon. And so what I'm trying to get at is, okay, first of all, there are hard times today. And I also believe that, yes, and again, not to minimize the value of growing up in hard times exist today. Hard times exist today. There's hard laborers exist today. The thing that is the continuum is that the knowledge moves forward and it evolves. So any warrior, we're talking about stick fighting today, has the benefit of the experiences and the knowledge of the past, with the emerging technologies, information, and wisdoms moving forward. So this is why I think that, first, if we're going to put weight classes, even then, Benjamin Rittner versus Angel Cabales, Benjamin would win in a stick fight, with or without armor.
Okay, so they say that would be the thing. So the Dog Brothers definitely popularized minimal armor fighting, but they weren't the first. People had been doing that for a while. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, when there's armor, people play to that. So I've done no armor fighting. Now, we wouldn't do headshots. We didn't go full out. It was just a friendly little thing, and we'd end up with welt marks left and right, and that's how I started, long before I ever even knew of the Dog. Actually, long before I even got into martial arts. I was doing backyard weapon fighting with my friends.
Yeah.
We had no brain.
You had a proper childhood, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we used to also box in our backyard. We used to wrestle in our backyard.
Yeah.
So, when I went to school, everyone wrestled in middle school. It was mandatory. Now, only if you're on the team. Okay.
That's a
So-
huge factor, man. Wrestling during your formative years, that is,
Yeah.
for
So-
me, a high school wrestler from Iowa
Mhm.
is on par with, if not greater than, a farm worker in Singapore or Malaysia. They're
So-
doing more work.
So we can talk about hard times, but we also have to talk about mindset.
Fine.
Okay. How many people have the mindset to go in and do that kind of stuff? I mean, listen, I've done padded, I've done all types of sparring. When it comes to stick fighting, I have done it all. I don't promote it a lot, but I've done all the different worlds. I've tried it. I know what I like. I know what I don't like.
Yep.
What I don't like is when people are doing any kind of semi-armored fighting and people are throwing punches and kicks and the weapon doesn't have the same knockout ability because someone's wearing a helmet.
I agree.
I've seen and listen, there are phenomenal weak half fighters out there, but we've seen what happens when you play to the rules versus try to fight.
Yeah, it's garbage.
But
Sorry, no offense. It's
but
still
tell
good.
me you haven't seen some phenomenal weak half fighters.
I have. 100%.
Bobbing and weaving and hand switching and all this stuff.
Amazing.
So the problem here is when you go for a competition,
Right.
as a coach, I coach my fighters to win.
Yeah.
Okay. I try to show respect for the weapon.
Yes. But you want to win.
But we also want to win.
Yeah.
I don't like the weak half game because there's a minimum armor requirement, but not a maximum armor requirement.
Yeah.
So, when you wear hockey pants so you don't get hit in the leg or you don't worry about getting hit. We had this discussion today about face shields for karate fighting, karate style, or, point style fighting. Hey, Ty, how you doing? I'd rather go without a face shield because having the consequence of getting hit in the face, it keeps my guard better.
Sure.
Unfortunately, with the MMA stick fighting, I prefer not to use Dog Brothers. I prefer MMA stick fighting because it is more accurate because they're not the only ones.
Yeah.
The problem here is I've seen people shoot in, disregard the weapons, and just do BJJ because they have protective gear and they can get away with it.
Yes. Okay, so to address that, yes, that does happen. It doesn't always happen, right? Because I know Dog Brothers, talking about like Lamont and Jason, Sean Zerger, and others, we see those examples happen for certain, but it's not fair to characterize an entire organization's ethos based on that. Because there are Dog Brothers who respect the blade, and there are fights that respect the stick as a blade. Okay.
And I love continuous style fighting to practice, and I make all the continue. Like I like the sport of point fighting.
Yeah.
It's cleaner to judge.
Yes.
And the audience gets it. And if the audience gets it, you can get more support. Right. You want to make it an Olympic thing, point or blade rules make so much more sense because everyone, why did UFC get so popular? Because it's like Thunderdome. 2 come in, 1 walk out. You tap out, knock out, choke out. Everyone gets the point.
Yeah.
So when you see continuous point fighting or when you see continuous stick fighting as a sport, it's kind of convoluted. But as a training tool, I don't want to stop every time I get hit because not every shot would stop me. So to train flow and combinations, I do continuous. But then I pull out the rattan. I prefer because I have to work and so do my people. I'll go with a weak half helmet because they're durable and they're meant for that. I'm a professional school. And even though fencing helmets work, it's not meant for that contact. So people always say, hey, like when we did, there was a group, there was cage stick fighting in Canada at one time.
Yeah.
One match. I was part of it for a while. And I backed out because I didn't like how the insurance was structured. A couple of my guys fought it. Everyone suggested, hey, use a fencing helmet. It's better. But even though it's not designed for that, I go, and that's what the attorney's looking for. Unfortunately, if someone gets injured, someone's going to get sued. And when people say no one's going to sue me, they don't have shit worth suing for.
Sure.
So,
let's get back to mindset, right? This is where you began with this, right? And then
I've traveled the world. I've been in 17 countries
Yeah.
and South and Tennessee. But uh, the question here is, have
Mhm.
you seen street fights break out in the middle of the Philippines? I've been in the middle of a 30
Yeah,
person
no,
brawl.
I have, but it wasn't like hardcore. You know what I mean?
We were there. So
Okay.
we filmed when we did the filming. So when I went the
Yeah.
first time, someone who mentored me while I was there said, "Tim, you got to watch this shit. It's not going to be a stick fight. They want you. They're going to grab a brick when you walk out through them. They're going to smash you in the head, and that's it."
It's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's a mindset
Okay.
because we're not talking hard time or a laboring area. We're talking a more visceral mindset.
Yeah,
Okay,
I get it. But we're still talking about stick fighting.
but it's the mindset.
Okay, so here, okay, can I address this whole
Okay,
mindset
sure.
thing? Okay, a lot of martial artists, they're like mindset is everything. No, my mindset is. Don't get me wrong. Okay, let me paint a picture for you. Okay,
Okay.
an ex-convict
Hmm?
who's high on drugs, who's on parole, and is one offense away from being put in jail for life.
Hmm?
When he is now being pursued by law enforcement, everything about him is mindset because you don't want to go to jail. You're on your last strike. Your mindset is to survive or evade and get out of this confrontation. That is a high level mindset. And yet, day in and day out, they get taken down by people who are more skilled. All right. Perhaps not more determined, but more skilled. So that's one example.
Okay.
And here's another thing. When we're talking about a stick fight, right? Like the framework of the engagement is known, and we know that there's danger involved. How many times have we seen a mother protecting their child pull off extraordinary feats? And that's a soccer mom. How many times do we see acts of heroism in the face of grave danger from regular people who lived comfortable lives when push comes to shove? When the dangers are known and something is triggered within us, it doesn't matter if you were born in Stockton in the Philippines during World War I, after World War II, in Thermopylae, in Canada to this day. When the human animal is confronted with a real situation whereby danger is imminent and poses a threat to our lives, something is triggered. And so when we're going to talk about a stick fight, it don't matter if they grew up in the piers of Cebu after World War II or if they grew up in Stockholm, Sweden, because there's a stick in front of you and a guy looking you in the face wanting to smash you. You're going to want to do your best. And there is no, and again, right? We're not talking about one versus one. We're talking about now versus then. We're all humans. We're the same kind of human being, except that the human being now has access to the stuff that they learned back then, the nutrition, the science, the training methodologies that we had then, plus the ones that we have now. New school fighters smashing it. Absolute, because mindset, you want to talk about mindset as old school guys having an edge? Bro, there are dudes right now who spent most of their lives in prison, who grew up in Brownsville, New York, who grew up in the slums and favelas of Brazil. You're telling me that kind of mindset isn't accessible and readily available to the people that we have today? That's just a falsehood. And I think it's just glorifying, our FMA heroes in a way that it doesn't make sense when push comes to shove. It actually doesn't make sense.
Well, first of all, let's go back to the cop thing real quick.
Yes.
I'm going to share this because I come from a law enforcement family.
Okay.
And if you can share that real quick.
Which?
Because I can't share that.
Show what?
I'm sharing a picture, but I can't share it.
Can I add it to the stream?
Yes, that's why I'm sharing that.
Okay, there we go.
So I do work with law enforcement. So when I make this comment,
yeah.
So right off the bat, when you say about cops taking people down, first of all, they're doing it smartly with numbers and better equipment.
Sometimes.
Okay. Now, as far as the mindset, when I'm talking about mindset, okay, just because you're a martial artist, just because you're a stick fighter, or just because we do what we do, doesn't mean people have it in them to actually throw down that way. I mean, if we're talking, like I said, I've been in fights. And I don't want to sound like I'm some virtual badass because that's not what I'm trying to do. But I have the ability to hurt people and not care about it. But a lot of people I've seen don't have that visceral mean streak. But then again, I grew up around and a victim of a lot of violence.
Okay.
So my mindset when I say let's talk about stick fighting, old school guys, I'm thinking that if you fought the way they fought, there was no armor.
Okay, so let's talk about fighting with no armor. First of all, how often? Okay, so whenever people argue with me about this, they say, "Oh, back then they fought without armor and they fought with kamagong or some hardwood."
Well, I don't know about kamagong.
I don't know either. But this is what they say. Yeah. This is what they say, right? Like they fought. And they make it sound like these old school guys fought all the time. And I'm like, wait a minute. Let's use a little bit of logic here, okay? How often can a human body go through stick fights? How often could Angel Cabales or Anshong Bacon or Leo Gahe or whoever, all of these amazing legends that we have, how often could they have stick fought unarmored, like fought? Not very often.
Unless they were winning.
But even then, right? Even then, even if they were winning, the nature of stick fighting, right? They may have been incredibly skilled, but then it boils down to skill. Doesn't boil down to mindset. They couldn't have, guys, when you talk about these old school guys stick fighting without armor, it didn't happen all that often. Maybe 4 times in their lifetime. You know what I mean? Like there's a hand. You talk about that one that was documented by the newspaper, this grudge match between one guy and another guy that ended up kind of like kitty cat way. That's one. If it happened often enough, you'd have cataloged, you'd have a record, right? It's not like Philippines didn't have record taking then. And even if they were grudge matches, you can't have too many of those. Who's getting into that many grudges where you're fighting every week, twice a week? That didn't happen, you guys. And so the experience gathered from a singular event or multiple events spread out through decades is nothing compared to the kind of training that happens today where, we are wearing headgear, but you've fought with a helmet. It's not like it doesn't hurt, right? I still don't want to get hit in the head.
So I've been beat by people that would revolve on other tactics that the helmet eliminates the fear of getting knocked out. I mean, here's the thing. Because of the mass behind a punch, a kick, an elbow,
right?
You could wear a helmet and still get knocked out. The odds on getting knocked out with the stick is less because of the less mass behind
That's right. You're absolutely right.
So now what you're saying is, well, no, not what we're saying. What we're looking at here is the stick has less capability of dropping somebody because we're wearing protective gear, and the punch or the kick or whatever has better capability. So then why even bother doing a weapon fight?
But we do weapon fight. You know what I mean?
But the thing is, now what you're doing is, so I remember, because I was there when it was happening. I didn't do it. I remember when they started with the cold steel tomahawks and Dog Brothers.
Yeah.
And that last 1 or 2 shots, and people are like, I'm done. Now, the game has changed a lot since then.
Sure.
But when it first happened and there was a weapon that had a little consequence to it,
right,
people started backing off. The thing here is that, and like I said, this has always been a big thing. I like inserting things from a training point of view.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. But when it comes to, I mean, to me, if we're going to implement all these different tools, like I like doing stick fencing more than anything else.
Me too.
Because when you're only doing the stick, you're not have to worry about a punch or a kick
Right.
being more effective because you're wearing some kind of protective armor and the stick isn't.
I agree. So what happens though? What happens when we fight in that way? What naturally happens when you respect the blade, or you're not wearing headgear, or there's a higher fear of getting hit? You know what happens? Less fighting. Less fighting happens. More outside running around, measuring, sticks in the air.
Like when Tot Dog did it, and him and what's his name? They only got hit 1 or 2 or 3 times in the whole match in 5 minutes, and then Eric got cut open because, oh, wait a minute, it was more realistic.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, actually. And who was it that I was talking with earlier that I quite enjoy when people who are wearing masks play that game, because it is possible to be wearing headgear and have the right mindset whereby you're imagining that you're not wearing headgear. I do it all the time. I fight sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I fight as if I don't have headgear, right? And that's what a real stick fight would actually look like. It would look like a machete fight that you see in Africa or in Brazil, where, guys, I want you to look this up. And this is why I love point fighting over continuous fighting, and people rag on point fighting as if it's unrealistic. It's the most realistic representation. It's actual blade rules. It's actual blade rules, because rarely do you see any footage where 2 people have long swords and machetes in a real fight where there's multiple strikes. It's usually 1 disengagement, realization, shock, crowd comes in, breaks it up. But before that, it's a whole lot of measuring, swinging in the air, protecting your space with swings before actually any sort of contact happens with the blade. So
what you're saying is the MMA stick fighters aren't doing realistic fighting. Gotcha.
They're not doing a thing that is truly representative of what happens when 2 people have machetes, but they're actually fighting. I'm not ragging on Dog Brothers or anyone who does that stuff, because you know what? It requires a whole lot of balls. It tests your resilience, your grit, your willingness. It tests your spirit.
You named it right there. And these are one of the points I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
The new school fighters don't have the new school people. Okay. I'm not going to talk about fighters. I'm going to talk about society, because that's where our fighters come from.
Yeah, but stick fighters are different breed, man. We're not the same as society. We're in modern society, but we're the antithesis of the snowflake who thinks
that's what we got people from. This is the gene pool we're pulling from. And today's people don't have the same grit that old school fighters did. Okay, now listen, I
don't think so.
You look at old school karate. All right. I look at today's martial artists, and they're so much better. Okay? So much better. Okay? No question. I'm going to share something again, because I got this just for today's show.
But I want to disagree with your point, okay? First of all, but yes, I'll show it. Okay.
There you go. That's a martial art tournament.
Hell yeah.
That is a competition. This is not Cobra Kai, where it was a fake tournament because they weren't wearing protective gear. This is the old school grit. Now, listen, today's fighters in this genre are amazing, better physical attributes, but these guys used to try to the goal was to knock each other out or down. Right. Now you could go into, if we go to Kyokushinkai Karate, that's that same type of mindset. But today's fighters I don't think they'd be able to handle that level of physicality. We can also equate it to football. Football players today are so much better. But could they play Iron Man like the old guys did?
Okay, so let me contest the claim, good sir.
Okay.
We're going to look at this. Can you see this? You can't say that it doesn't exist today.
I don't say it doesn't, but that's wrong. That's not the norm.
Well, that wasn't the norm of karate either. What you showed, you know what I mean?
That
And
was, oh, back then it was.
anyway,
That,
but still,
listen,
the pool of people who are doing it is infinitely smaller than the people who might be doing this kind of crap today. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to address.
oh, I mean,
Sorry.
oh, that's me. Hold on. Oh,
Let me
yep,
remove
there it
that.
is. Stop sharing. Okay.
You talk about the Philippines back then. Let me tell you something about the Philippines back then. It was the pearl of the Orient. Manila was modeled after how Paris was constructed. We had taxis that were Mercedes Benzes. It wasn't a soft culture, especially in the rural areas, right? But it was a beautiful, pristine place that was sophisticated and high class. It wasn't, the streets of Tondo. Like, if you look at streets of Tondo, maybe in the 50s, it was beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't this like hardcore place that people make it seem to be. And again, we're talking about stick fighting. Here's my number one argument.
Mhm.
There are more people stick fighting today than there ever has been all around the world, maybe even in the Philippines.
I'd agree with that.
So what happens when you have more people looking, examining, scrutinizing, experimenting, and innovating on any one thing is that there are improvements in that thing. Just like you see with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, even in modern times, right? Like Gordon Ryan would smash Royce Gracie UFC 1. Like, he would smash everybody. I just think
Look
that
at those today. We don't have the same consequence. You see, now the thing here is with everything, think about the gear, the teaching tools that we have today that we didn't have back in the day.
hell yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're better today.
And we have better equipment.
Yes, we do.
All right.
But we have more people doing it.
Right. But we don't have the same consequence. So here's the thing. You're wearing a fencing helmet. That eliminates any eye shot. That eliminates all that kind of stuff. The other thing, too, is like the Dog Brothers are very good at bringing. There's two things I look at the Dog Brother. One, they've got real contact. No questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not real context.
Right. Look, I just posted about the amazing contributions that the Dog Brothers have to FMA, but the truth about the Dog Brothers, it's a lot more sophisticated and philosophical than some of the marketing and branding that it's traditionally relied upon. It's a beautiful system. It's sophisticated. Two fighters can say, "Hey, no kicks." Two fighters can say,
They could.
Right?
Sometimes they don't, though. Sometimes they have a problem and they agree to something, and one fighter doesn't play by that way. And
Sure, that's fine. I mean, there will be they are fighting, which is great. My personal favorite is the way it's not just the PTTA, but that's primarily where my exposure has been.
Mhm.
In that we respect the stick as a blade. Of course, it's going to get messy. It's still stick fighting. Any sort of a clinch, takedown, or ground fighting engagement needs to be resolved in 4 to 6 seconds, or someone's going to break it. Because I also don't like, look, stick grappling is beautiful. It's its own thing. But when we're going to talk about, the blade maybe representing, or the stick representing the blade, there's no sense in, ground grappling for 2 minutes.
Hold on. You keep talking. I'm stepping off here just to change something. I'm listening, but
yeah.
I'm not
Rodolfo Garcia, let me read your comment real quick. Just a point for clarification. The Philippines was the pearl of the Orient for just around a few dozen city blocks. Yeah, a few miles outside of Intramuros. Yes, I was talking, I alluded to the rural areas, which was a lot broader back then. You're absolutely correct. But even then, right? If we look at the rural areas today in the Philippines, it's a lot less beautiful than it used to be.
So I'm not sure which I know there's a couple things I want to bring up, but I want to figure out the best order for this. So,
sure.
First of all, we're talking about the Philippines since
right,
Jason brought that up. Remember, this was at the end of World War II. Okay. A war was fought on their turf,
leaving it depleted, in some ways defeated, and morale was low. Okay.
But people actually fought for their lives on their home turf. Now, we haven't had that happen here as a war since the Civil War. So
Okay.
we haven't had a war on our turf. And the last time someone tried, and no one has ever come on our. We did fight Canada for a short period of time, but that was another story.
And you lost.
But we did not have overseas fight. We didn't have fights happening on our land. They were defending their homes. They had real life situations happening in the Philippines. So they learned this. I mean, they were practicing. I don't want to say practice. They were doing the craft to protect their family, themselves, and their country. So and when we talk about mindset, I mean, people have. That's what I'm talking like. When you don't just turn that off, because a lot of these people that we're talking that I'm referring to,
Yeah.
the fighting was done at the end. I mean, the real fighting was done at after World War II ended. Now, after it was Ernesto Paredes who actually helped develop the first stick fighting helmet, which became the WECAF helmet. I think things went sideways after that when it comes to stick fighting. But the fighters prior to that,
Okay.
some of them had real life scenarios protecting their family and their country. Leo Jaron over here now, as a U.S. soldier, fought in the Bola Brigade. So when we talk about people who've done these real life and death situations, that mindset's a little different. The other thing here is when we're talking stick fighting, that's a generic sense. I'm talking, what I think about stick fighting is I think about Filipino martial arts. What I don't think about is MMA stick fighting, which is what a lot of other people do. And I'm not putting it down.
Yeah, I understand.
When you look at what using the Dog Brothers as the paradigm.
And use the PTTA as the paradigm because those guys, they throw down.
Well,
and a lot of them are Dog Brothers, which is
a lot of the guys know that. Okay, so but a lot of people, the thing here is like using the Dog Brothers as the main thing that people have most visibility to.
They absolutely deserve the.
So a lot of them have Pikiti, but it's not only Pikiti. So some people tried to say it was only Pikiti. And when they were trying to, recently they started talking about this and they say, well, it was all Leo. No, Leo put together the Dog Eaters because there was the Dog Brothers. So he's trying to do some little marketing against that, but that's another story. I was around back when that stuff was going on.
Yeah.
But okay, you got Pikiti, you got screw Pikiti, you got all different types of Filipino martial arts.
Sure.
A good chunk of them had studied Pikiti. But it's not exclusively Pikiti. It could be Lameco. It could be KI. It could be the La Costa blend. We've had Modernese people fight in there.
You have one Modernese guy fighting in there.
No, you have a crew of Modernese people fighting there because Craig has a cadre of people fighting.
That's right. I fought Craig. He's good. He's good stuff.
Yeah. And where do you think he got it from?
Hey, when I was fighting Craig, I was like, I'm fighting Tim Hartman here.
I'm in the 57, turning 58. I'm doing things a little differently.
No.
But the thing here.
Yeah, we're talking about mindset, growing up in war.
So I look at, but in addition to that, you've also got Bondo. So Dr. G taught the Dog Brothers how to stick grapple. And actually, that's how I met Mark Denny, was at a Dr. G camp. You've got Muay Thai kickboxing. You've got all this stuff in there. So I don't even look at that type of thing being Filipino. I think of it, okay, so Jeet Kune Do in my mind is not Filipino. It is a synthesis of many martial arts, and one of the arts that part of that synthesis is Filipino martial arts, but it's not an exclusive FMA program. And when I look at the Dog Brothers, it is an MMA stick fighting program, truly a mixture of all martial arts, not saying MMA grappling, which, because MMA was before MMA.
Sure.
So they got Krabi Krabong, they got Thai boxing, they got Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they got all types of wrestling. So so when we talk about, if we're going to we have to talk apples to apples, oranges to oranges. I don't even put like this type of stick fighting in the same category that these guys grew up in, because it's another animal. And if you armored people up, here's what I'm going to say: if you armored people up, hands down, the new school fighters have the edge. No question about it.
Yeah.
Because they're used to fighting with protective gear. They're used to throwing punches that Who cares if I get hit with a stick because I can drop the guy? I've seen it happen time and time again. I can choke you out because, wait a minute, the stick won't hit me in the eye. I don't have to worry about not being able to see. There's so many different things that can happen. Oh, and by the way, I can hide a knife on me because we should do that, which is bullshit. You should tell everyone what you got ahead of time. I would kneecap somebody. If someone pulled a knife out, a hidden knife, I'd get him in the parking lot if I had to. There's no freaking way. So I think that's the most asinine thing I heard, unless everyone agrees to it.
Sure.
Okay, that's my rant. So I look at Filipino stick fighting being different than MMA stick fighting. So in that case, yes, if you're talking about the MMA stick fighting, hands down, the new fighter is going to win. But if we did Filipino only, so stick only, no gear, right, I don't think the new skilled fighters can handle it because I don't think they have the balls to go toe to toe and risk being their life.
Okay. So I'm going to address exactly that. Now we're talking about stick fighting without armor.
Yes, because I agree with you on the armored stuff.
Fine. Armored stuff.
Armored
today's
stuff,
fighters would school all the old school fighters. Now, now the framework is still stick fighting, but no armor. Okay?
Stick fighting with no armor.
And your argument is...
I'm going to say stick dueling.
Stick dueling. Call it whatever you want to call it. And your argument is the old school guys would win, one, because they have the mindset to win, right?
Well, first of all, let me say this again. To reiterate this, I don't think a third of the people who claim to have fought actually fought. I started the show with that. I did say that. Remember,
you're talking about the old school guys who claim to have fought didn't actually fight.
Listen, I'm going to tell you the guys that I know who fought. Okay? Then that would be Anchon Bacong, Kaikoy Kinyete, my least favorite friend, Ising Atilio, because we know it happened, and my teacher confirmed other matches that he fought in because he judged them, and Remy Preces. These are the only four that I've got confirmation that they fought.
Okay.
Real matches where people were hurt or killed.
I'm going to do you one better.
Okay.
Let's say for the four people that you mentioned, there were actually 200 more unnamed Filipinos who died off and had real stick fight duels that nobody ever heard about.
Okay.
And let's put them all in that category of old school. And part of the reason that you think they're going to succeed against today's fighters is because they grew up in a hard life and they had the right mindset. And part of the reason, correct? Part of the reason is the mindset to not think twice about hurting somebody. Okay, I got you.
That's a different. It's not, like I said, I was in the middle of a street fight that broke out in the Philippines, and people literally were grabbing bricks to smash each other in the head. No one was doing this. They were grabbing for weapons.
100%.
That's a different mindset.
So here's where I will begin to post my arguments.
Okay. And I'm looking at some of these comments while we're doing this here.
Sure. Confronted with real life danger, stick fighting, many humans today, whether or not they grew up in a hard life or a soft life, and we've seen this happen, like I said, documented time and again, we've seen acts of heroism, extreme bravery, and courage under threat of death from regular people. Okay? It didn't require them to have lived a hard life for this primal thing to be extracted out of them. And in the moment, right? So when you say that these old guys are more willing to hurt somebody with a stick, the moment Tom, Dick, and Harry gets any sort of inclination that this is for real, they also won't hesitate to defend their life. This is just a human thing.
So, but how many people would be willing? Okay,
hold on. You're talking about something different. You're talking about who would sign up and register. Okay, well, that's what you're saying.
The thing here is, I'm not saying that today's people don't have to do it, but we're talking people that, hey, let's go. And that's how many people run towards the gunshots versus run away. How many people run for the fire? That's 100%. A whole other animal.
And by the way, we're not talking about Filipinos versus Americans.
No, we're not.
Right? Because there are Filipinos that are on the new school side today who still live in more dangerous streets, in more volatile times, in arguably harder times than these legends lived in. No, they didn't grow up on the heels of World War II. But Philippines, a lot of it is not an easy place to live. So these guys still live there today, and they're fighting today with bottles, with knives, with sticks, with batons, with beer bottles, with guns. So there's a lot of hardcore people living in third world countries right now.
Mhm.
And if you want to talk about war in the homeland being any sort of a factor, well, there might be something that I can say about, for example, all the civil wars happening in multiple countries in Africa. If I take somebody in like Rwanda or the Congo and I train them up in FMA, they're not going to have any problem hitting a dude in the face with a stick. It's not. Remember, we're trying to delineate between guys who lived then in that area and guys who live now. And for me, it's not even a contest. It's not even a question. When you talk about mindset, when you talk about skill, when you talk about willingness to hurt and be violent and be aggressive, today's fighters will smack the crap out of any of the legends that we hold in high regard. And again, I don't mean to say this with any level of disrespect. And I know that's how some people are going to take it. But if we just examine it a little bit under an objective lens, it's pretty easy call. And I'm not saying all of them will, but I'm saying we're bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. We have more people examining, scrutinizing, exploring, and innovating this art. We have the technology to safely and repeatably train these concepts. And if mindset is a thing that's equal amongst all human beings alive then and now, then the advantage clearly goes to the new school. I mean, that's. But mind you, I can say Ernesto Presas could smack the crap out of anybody alive today. That would still nonetheless be a truth. But that's one guy. And you know he was a special guy.
I don't know if Ernesto ever fought. I'm talking
Remy.
Right.
Sorry,
They're-
Remy.
they're- you know,
Confused the two.
listen, and the thing here, okay, so first of all, Jerry, I would like to know how many people you're actually talking about. And I never said people didn't fight, but
Which one is that? Let me
Jerry Jacobs.
This one?
No, farther down.
Farther down. This one.
Yes.
So I don't agree, Tim. Many FMA practitioners have been full contact fighting here in the USA since the early 90s with no armor. Yeah, I mean, there's one video with a Psyox, and that was, people think that's impressive, but it kind of proves a point. Like,
okay, so I have a guy who was part of SIAC who actually talked about that. Everyone in that film, that SIAC film, suffered permanent damage of some sort.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but what's permanent damage? Like a scar, something that broke that isn't healed. Those guys weren't young, you know what I mean? But what we saw in that fight is that you can get hit with a stick a lot and remain a combatant.
I also thought that those sticks were a little light.
They were, yeah, for sure. People love that video, but I'm like,
I hated that video.
I hate it for this reason. I love it for this reason. It demystified what a stick can do under the adrenalized state. These guys were getting smacked and they were running right through it.
But remember, I mean, and I don't want to go on this thing, but I'm going to play the card. Yeah. Once again, rattan's a practice tool.
Sure.
So sure. I mean,
But wait a minute. You've seen the rattan from like not KI, but Combat Instruments, Nick Papadakis.
Well, I have similar supplier. They're okay.
Man,
I mean, if you do enough, when you finally visit, you'll see my rattan. If you get the thick enough thing, but I like that video. To me, they all looked about 7/8.
They were using recap sticks more or less, and that's fine. That's still
recap has no weight to it at all. So I think they use something a little heavier than that. Yeah. But the thing here is if you use a tool that has consequence. But I don't know of. I'm going to disagree. I have to disagree with Jerry. I know most styles of FMA I bumped into don't even fight.
Yeah, most Filipino martial artists don't throw down, so man.
Jerry, Mr. Jacobs, not to be the jerk that I sometimes come off to be, I would say the majority of FMAers don't fight. And let's talk about this once again, because this is the thing I like throwing out there. 1% of the population does martial arts. That means we're 1 in 99. FMAs, 1% of that, which means we're 1 in 10,000. Really? If that, do you really think that's a lot of people?
Yeah. And from there, how many FMAers
actually fight?
Very little.
I was.
And you know what? And let me say this too, Tim. Even the FMAers who do fight, most of them fight only within their circles, and that's what are you going to learn?
I went and played at the Babakan tournaments. I would go anywhere. And the cool thing here's the funny thing. So people told me, and I know, right? Okay, so modern arnis is the art within your art. So majority of Remy's students in the States, which I'd say in the 99 percentile, did it as a secondary art, which means they wouldn't fight because they would do their karate, their taekwondo, and all that other stuff. But modern arnis has a rule set because there are tournament rules in here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but in modern arnis, I was Rocky and myself were there was like 5 of us that actually fought. I went to Michigan summer camp with homemade padded sticks, PVC tubing, little duct tape, foam, a lot of duct tape. And I would actually do live stuff without that. And then I bring that out, we play, and people are like, you do this all the time? Yeah. But you still need a helmet. Why? And I smack him in the hand. Oh, yeah, you would need a helmet. But no one did that. I mean, that's in my own art, which modern was probably one of, if not the largest practice art in the world. It usually is an adjunct system or an add-on system. And they didn't all fight. So, and I would go to other schools all the time, who really fought a lot. Not that I like the methodology, the Dulce Pares. Why? Because they own WECAF. And it's all part of their culture. But I can't tell you how many schools that I've been to that don't fight. That's what I have a problem with people in modern arnis when they say we're arnisadors. Take the training wheels off and start diving into the
Yeah, it's right. You know what it was, man. Okay, by the way, first let me ask you a question. I have a theory about why not so many Filipino martial artists actually fight or spar. By the way, I have no problems with people sparring with their students within their own circles, using padded sticks and safety equipment. That is absolutely 1000% better than nothing. Like there's a Pikiti school that just does distance sparring, and it's the most ridiculous. It is a look. You practice, you get good at what you practice.
Distance sparring, is that like Bobby's twirling sparring drill?
Yes, where you're completely out of range and you're visualizing you're hitting a guy or blocking. When all you practice is distance sparring, you don't make contact, and you're not actually trying to hit anybody. It's a known fact. You get good at what you train, and if that's all you train, and then you go at it, you're going to be swinging out of range. It's ridiculous.
The funniest thing. So
it's ridiculous. By the way, Tim, where can people follow you on social media?
You can DatuHartman.com. Well, actually, that's going away. But I mean, DatuHartman.com will be forwarded.
On Instagram, you want to go
hashtag Datu Hartman or something like that. Anywhere you'll find me.
Datu Hartman.
Datu Hartman. DATU. Datu Puti. No, Hartman. HARTMAN.
Okay.
At Datu Hartman. There you go. One N. We came over before World War II, and we got rid of the N so we weren't confused with the other Germans. But
okay.
So here's the funny thing. I would hear about fights all the time with all the Balintawak guys in the Philippines, but you know who doesn't fight in the States?
The Balintawak guys.
The Balintawak.
Some Balintawak guys. Okay, so
the norm, not the exception.
Yeah, the Cleveland group, I think, spars. The Canadian guys, we do 100%, and we actually try to.
That's not Balintawak, though. No. Let me say this. No. Okay, you fought a modern arnis guy at an event.
Yes.
No, you didn't. You fought one of my guys at the event, and he happens to do modern arnis.
Okay, I got you.
So Renee talked about how modern arnis people support him in Toronto.
Yeah,
they don't. There are how many modern arnis groups in Toronto?
A lot.
Okay, how many support him? 0. You know who supports him? Tim Hartman and his group. Yeah. So Craig comes down from Craig comes from Sudbury. I come from Buffalo. Jason Arnold comes from London. You don't see the IMAF. You don't see any of these modern arnis group support.
Honestly,
and I'm not talking about modern arnis, but when you look at Balintawak, I don't look at you as Balintawak. I look at you as Paulo Rubio.
Right.
You're an individual who supports, and Balintawak is one of the things that you train.
Yes. And I don't know any of the grouping systems. I just have the luxury of having some amazing Balintawak guy like Mark Medieros, Guru Joe Apostol, Ryan Pope. Those guys are Tabuada Balintawak guys. They know the art. They love and respect the art. They adhere to the standards of the art. But when we get together, we go above and beyond that, and we explore and we do stuff like we punch each other in the face. Me, not so much. Those guys more. But I get what you're saying. By the way, speaking of the modern Anise like community here in Toronto, I think they scared because and look, and I get it. You look at combat arts and what
Modernists don't fight,
but
it's in the book. It's in the book.
I think we can do a better job. I think personally speaking, like you look at the Sabong Kali, you look at Zama. So we're talking about Justin Patricio's group.
Okay, let's make sure for all the listeners, we're not talking styles. We're talking training groups.
Yeah, the training groups, the Sabong Kali training group under Combat Arts, under the tutelage of Justin Patricio Fernando, Zama, the Zerger Academy of the Martial Arts, under Jean Zerger, who is a dog brother. There's a few dog brothers under the Combat Arts umbrella as well. We could do a better job at making the modern Arnis guys feel more welcome because honestly, it can be quite intimidating. Like
no. You need to do a better job of making all of FMA.
Yes,
but it's not just you; it's all of the other groups.
It's all of yes, yeah, you're right.
So Toronto, one of the largest cities in the world, has
fifth largest city in
has
America.
Quite the FMA community up there.
Yes,
and they don't interact. And long before Paulo started doing this stuff, I was going up in the '80s, hanging out with one of the main groups up there, and even back then, they just did not interact well. And because once again, the problem is our art is very tribal based, and people get that tribal mindset, and it just doesn't help. So yes, Steve.
What's that pink book?
Well, yes and no. I have the books. There are several of us who have books, but they don't. This is out of production now. This is the Filipino version of the same book. So I think this is in the National Bookstore. It's a little thinner. They redid the cover, modernized it. Although this is the one you want because this has Roland Dantes, Mr. Philippines, with Remy. By the way, Roland was sent to kill Remy, and he was the one that got Remy out of the country. Gotta love that. That was all during the Marco. That was covered the other day. But Steve, give me a holler. I'll see what I can do.
Awesome. All right. Well, wrapping up who would win new school versus old school. Again, I want to reiterate that no disrespect meant whatsoever. It's quite possible that even though, and here's what I'll give to the old school guys. There were fewer of them, but they made the most impact. We wouldn't be talking about this crap that we're talking about today if it weren't for the Kabbalists and the Presas and the Gahes and the Hirons and.
Well, let's talk about one thing in general, which you just mentioned, something that's quite overlooked. Sometimes people focus on what the pioneers done, and they feel for some reason it supersedes the accomplishments that the next generation has done.
Boom.
The thing here is this.
You can't say that because you're one of those people. Let me say it on your behalf.
Oh, well, okay. Well, no, because here, I'll say this, and you can reiterate.
Go ahead.
Listen, Angel Cabales. He's not the one spreading the art, but he lit the match. Bruce Lee died before his time. Inosanto and others carried the torch. There's the person who lit the match, lit the torch, and the people who carried on.
That's a huge thing. And you know what? There is a kind of respectful insecurity that a lot of the modern guys have. Not modern Arnis guys. A lot of the contemporary guys have. Yeah. And I see it. I look at certain people, yourself included. I'm like, what you're doing is historical. But oftentimes we fall under the shadows of the ones who initiated it, that we don't recognize the contributions of the people that are doing it today, right? You talk about someone like you or someone like Tuhana Palaladra. You guys are the two only people that I know in this world that have dedicated brick and mortar Filipino martial arts only academies that isn't going on the heels of a taekwondo or a karate. Like that is historical. You look at somebody who, man, look, I'm going to toot my own horn. Forgive me, humility aside, but I've generated tens of millions of videos or tens of millions of views, and I've brought so many people to just an awareness of the Filipino martial arts. But social media aside, there are people every day in and day out, growing their study groups, spreading the art, creating incredible students who become ambassadors for the art. And this is my message for all of you contemporary guys. And this is why I'm such a proponent and an advocate for the new school guys is don't minimize your contributions. What the people who are doing FMA today is absolutely extraordinary. There are study groups in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Brazil, in some parts of Africa. And those guys are historical because some of them are like a guy can be alive today and say, I'm the first one to bring FMA to Croatia. I'm the first one to have a study group of Modernistes in Romania. These are historical contributions to the broader picture of the Filipino martial arts. Stand up, be proud. Yes, we can honor those who come before us and those who lit the torch, but we're carrying it to this day. So stand up, be proud, and don't be afraid to highlight your accomplishments on social media, because if you're not going to toot your own horn, somebody's going to mistell your story, as we see happening today. So that's all I got to say. New school guys, keep doing what you're doing, because Filipino martial arts is here to stay, man. And it's because of the people who are.
We need the new school guys to step up and do more, because the gene pool is so small. We need to work together so we can get more people on the team.
Absolutely. No, and we see what happens to a system when there's an over-reliance on a figurehead that dies. We see it. And so we need more people to have clarity. We need more figureheads to say before they're passing, hey, this is exactly what I want to happen. This is why these podcasts, your podcast, FMA discussion, it's so important, because people are saying important things, right? Like Ray Floro said important things in an FMA discussion we had yesterday about who he wants and what he wants for his system when he dies. In his own words, documented, no question. These are living wills. These are living testaments. So we're not going to make the same mistakes based on circumstance or poor decisions from the past. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sorry, man. I'm just very passionate about this whole thing.
Yeah, no, you know, hey, listen, you've heard me speak enough. You know how I've got that fire. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I think we've reached the conclusion of our discussion about new school and old school. I think somebody commented we were able to do this even though we disagreed with respect. Hey, yeah. Tim, how are we able to do this? And why is it that sometimes you and I are misunderstood, misrepresented, misconstrued, and then gossiped about in
because people are insecure. Listen. If here's the problem. We can go out for food, and if I don't like German food and you do, no one thinks twice about it.
Right.
But we've got this tribal mentality, non-logical mentality in our martial arts, and we're also insecure if someone's doing something better than us or something doesn't work. I mean, I'm coaching my kids to go to a tournament tomorrow, and I go, you know what? I know where I am, where I was. You know, when I started, I was not the top guy in the art. I looked at the spot I wanted. I went and I took it. How did I take it? By doing my work. You know, and if I didn't get there, it wasn't because of a lack of effort. And I'm okay with that. When people are better at other things than I do, and I'm okay with it. But a lot of people are insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And this society, everyone's like, oh my, well, they all need their mommies and daddies. And it's like just the whole mindset of rub some dirt on it, which goes back to my argument. It's that mindset. And, two people are, I don't know. Some people,
you know what it is?
For therapy instead of getting a real therapist.
No, and I ran into this with a lot of the Calice Illustrissimo psychophants. Is it, how do you pronounce it? Sycophant?
Sycophants, whatever. They're psychotic. Yeah, they're right.
So there's a bunch of these Calice Illustrissimo guys who were incredibly upset. First of all, it wasn't even my opinion that I just posted this question that, was Tatang a good instructor, or some guy thinks he's a terrible instructor. Look, some guy thinks Tatang Illustrissimo is a terrible instructor. That's fine. And I love what Ray Flores said about that. He's like, he doesn't care because he knows the truth. People who don't know the truth are insecure about it and feel the need to defend it. What happens, Tim, is that there's a lot of these like lower level representatives of these luminaries, the Tatang Illustrissimos, the Remy Presas, the Leo Gajes, the Angel Cabales, the guys who spent just enough time and got enough selfies with them, but they still belong really low within the totem pole or the hierarchy of the system structure, that when they type with their fast little fingers in defense of or to protect the integrity of the system, it's like a social currency. It's like the young runt trying to stand up to the bully, protecting their boss. That's how they act. They're losers.
But they're not protecting their boss.
They're not.
You know who they're protecting? They're trying to protect themselves, because if it turns out that their guy is wrong and they built everything that they're doing on their guy, listen, Rodolfo, thank you for he talks about what I talk all the time. I left the International Modernist Federation when shit went sideways because it wasn't what Remy wanted. Because it wasn't what was in the will. I did my own thing. I didn't fight over Remy scraps. I built my own thing. And that's why I'm doing seminars around the world. I've got 27 schools in North America and other countries coming. Why am I doing all this shit? Because I did it on my own. I don't know. I mean, listen, Remy taught me. He did so much for me. But I built my own house. He showed me how to do it. I couldn't do it without him. It's a partnership. If you're my student, I only do a half of the work. You got to do the other half. You got to do the training. I do the teaching. So if I have good students, a good chunk of this because they've got a good work ethic, not because I'm their teacher. That's a partnership.
Yes, sir.
Now Remy's gone and I do my own work. And now you look at Remy's original organization, it's not there.
Well, this is why, again, going back to KI, you have Bahad Zubu from Yuli Romo. You have Flora Fighting System from Ray Floro. I'm sorry if I forget the other ones, but when all you've got is a selfie in a couple of days training with Tatang, you want to protect that because that's your only real connection. You haven't put in the work, you haven't interpreted the art, and you may well have a good following and have friends within the system, but even those guys know what's up. They know the truth. They know.
I see this all the time where guys know where the problem is, and every time you talk. Oh, listen, I know Remy had issues. I know he's done some things. I know, but I also know people misinterpret things. I know people didn't try to figure out who he was. I know more about Remy now that he's dead than I knew because why? Wait for it. I go to the Philippines to learn the culture, to understand, not because I don't need the damn martial arts. He gave me everything I needed. You want an education, you do it here in the States because we have a better access to material and stuff like that. But I didn't understand the man. I was exposed. I go to Toronto quite a bit to get exposed to Filipino culture, but I went to the Philippines and I continue to go to the Philippines to be immersed in that culture. If we looked at all the material that I learned from all the trips together, it doesn't merit one visit to the Philippines. But it wasn't about that thing. I needed to know stuff that I couldn't learn unless I went. Right. And that's the culture, the people. I felt that connection,
Yeah. And there's no better time to visit the Philippines than today. When you guys did it, when Nick Papadakis did it, it was harder to travel in the Philippines back then. Now it's so easy. By the way, shout out the PTTA Asia conference is happening this November. It's probably the most accessible one, and it's well organized because some of the events that happen in the Philippines, they're great, they're awesome, but sometimes they can be a logistical nightmare. You know what I mean? Like, you said they were going to be here, we should be here, schedules change, all that stuff. So anyway, listen, you know what happens, right? Right? Yeah, that's part of Filipino culture too, right? Like bus schedules change and they just forget to tell you. Yeah. So
that's why you get a Grab. That's their Uber. Everybody, Grab is their Uber.
Right. So it's so easy to travel to the Philippines. It's safe. There's only like really small, tiny pockets that would be difficult to get to anyway. that are dangerous. If you're studying Filipino martial arts right now, go to the Philippines. There are just so many amazing practitioners and study groups that are blooming in Manila alone, let alone, the central Visayas, northern Luzon.
Luneta Park, baby. Gotta go there. You gotta go there during the day to get the good stuff, and then you go at night because the freaks come out at night, just like the song.
Yeah. By the way, there's a Luneta Park, by the way, here, just maybe 5 kilometers, about 2 miles from me.
Nice.
And there's a statue of Rizal. I believe it's Rizal. Yeah, so we have a Luneta Park. I should go.
No Lapu Lapu.
No Lapu Lapu. That's the original.
With the muscles that didn't exist back then, but that's.
Come on, man. Come on.
He's so tall. He's probably only that big.
It's exactly like that. So anyway, okay. I think that's it, man. We can talk about other things, but I think that was a good wrap up for that conversation. What do you think? You stand by your stands?
Yeah, I do, because like I said, we can all have our. I think if we talk up, like, once again, if we're talking about the MMA armored stick fighting or the MMA style stick fighting, yeah, I still think. Okay, let's put it this way: Remy and Anshon, and I don't have hands on with Anshon, but like I said, he killed 2 people, not on purpose, and he did time, which also goes to this. Oh, there's death matches all the time. Then there must be a shitload of people in prison, because Anshon got in 2 fights that ended up in someone dying, and if he ended up in the prison both times, I figured that all these other guys would.
Okay, I'll even look. Listen, if that happened to an FMA guy today, we wouldn't be talking about it in the same way. We'd be like, what an idiot. We would be saying, oh, this FMA guy killed somebody by accident. What an absolute dummy. But for some reason, because it happened then, it's cool. I don't know about that.
I'm not saying it's cool. I'm just saying, the whole idea that they talk about all these death matches and but wait a minute, you didn't do time? Oh no. I'm like, but wait a minute. Anshon killed 2 people and he got put away both times. One was self-defense. It was a short period. The other time, Tabamina helped get him out. He'd been there a long time. But I'm like, it's not like you could just kill someone and disappear. I mean, you could disappear. There's a lot of landmass over there to disappear in. But there was consequences to your actions.
Yeah. There's a lot of...
Which I think the urban legend of all the death matches that we talked about,
I know, right? But again, I get it, and I'm glad there are people talking about these things. Man, I was shit on when I first started going, you actually believe these stories? And they're like, are you calling my master a liar? And I'm like, no, I'm just saying.
No, you might exaggerate a little.
Yeah.
Or it could be somebody else's story.
Yeah, and a lot of the vocal minority who are so adamant on like defending the system that they train in, they're born and raised in North America, and they just want so desperately to believe what they were told, because it's easy. It's easier to say, oh, I study XY Kali, and this fought off the Japanese, and my grandmaster killed 5 people. It's so much easier to do that than to go, holy crap, let's test this and let's figure it out for ourselves. So it's the whole psychology of ownership, right?
Well, I also, no matter what my teachers have done, that if they're not doing it for me, I still got to do it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, that psychology of ownership, it's like when people buy a Honda Civic and then they put on a new air filter and then they paint it a particular way and they put a new exhaust and then they make all these little tweaks and additions to make it just a little bit faster, and then they try to sell it in the open market and it sells for under book value, and they're like, I put this and this, and the psychology of ownership will have you believe that the thing that you love and the thing that you invest in and the thing that you spend money for, it'll have you believe that it's more valuable than it actually is. And that happens in martial arts all the time. And this is why you get folks who will chime in endlessly with like illogical remarks. And that's why even sometimes like the dumbest comments, the dumbest illogical comments will have 23 likes from the same people who belong in their same group. And unfortunately, likes is a social currency. You see somebody make a comment, there's 23 likes. Oh, it must be valid. Versus the one logical comment that has 0 likes. It's just the way it works. It's stupid. Yeah. Anyway, Tim, what keeps you in it? Because you've gone through cycles of like FMA forums and no forums, and then all of a sudden social media, and you keep adjusting, man. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a TikTok account, to be honest. I don't know if you do. Do you have a TikTok account? So you have a TikTok account. You just keep rolling with the punches and you keep adjusting. How are you able to do that, man?
So, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But I mean, well, first, listen, 1986, I made this my career. If this is going to be my career, I got to stick with it. I gotta do. It's funny how I know people my age. Okay, I'm only 57. Okay, I grew up watching all the technology developments, and I know people who are my age, even younger, that are not on that don't know how to do Facebook. And I'm not saying you have to know, because if it's personal, but I mean, I run a business, so I look at the only thing I don't do is Snapchat.
You have an OnlyFans?
I can either confirm or deny.
Okay.
You'll see me like this.
So I like this. I like your philosophy actually a lot. There are some, for example, doctors who are happy to graduate and have their private practice, and that's all they ever do. Then there are other doctors who are researchers. Then there are other doctors who are kind of in between, who they keep a pulse on the research, but they still run a practice. I think that's where you kind of are. If I were to relate what you do, which isn't a stretch considering the amount of time, money, investment you put into learning and evolving your craft. And to some degree, it can be life and death, like a doctor might be. But you're kind of in between that researcher doctor and that general practitioner who has to run the day-to-day operations. You have to keep a pulse on what's going on.
I mean, listen, I tell you what, if Remy was still around today, he would have all these things. It'd probably be me or someone managing it for him. But, Remy was a guy that was huge back then without the social media. What would he be today if he had the social media? And the man's dead, and he still has. You look at the videos out there, it's crazy the quantity of views.
Yeah. I started watching them. I started watching Remy's, and I see you in the background too, young Tim Hartman.
Shame, though. Those videos suck. I mean, the thing here is this. Remy, okay.
They were good. They're better.
No, but here's the thing that doesn't. This is a video. The video cannot give you the scope of Remy. One, he's terrible in front of the film, in front of a camera. Two, when you see all these top guys, what you see translate. Like when I see Danny Inosanto, I've crossed sticks with Danny Inosanto.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. Nice. There's no disconnect. You see what you get. But when Remy, Wally J, Dr. Meng Ji, when they put hands on you, it's a feeling that does not, I mean, he would trap your hand. You'd feel it in your damn toes. I mean, I've never. Okay, no one has hit me the way Remy has, and it's not a challenge. But doing the art, doing the art. See, that's the whole thing. Like when I see all these guys, I'm impressed to a level, but Remy was on a level that these others weren't. I mean, he was in Japan and took out a kendo player with a hunk of rattan. Because he walked on the shoes. He was on a goodwill tour from the Philippines, walked on the mats with the shoes. You cannot, and you know how they are with shoes. Well, you can't wear that. Well, my magic is in my shoes. They didn't like that. Wow. And then at the end, him and the kendo practitioner were really buddy-buddy, but he has the Shinai, Remy has on for a 10. Boom. And Remy had this feeling that I didn't get. I mean, like I said, there's only 3 people that give me that vibe. And I can give you a laundry list of people who I've trained with, who I've attended things and stuff like that. I mean, the only guy that's close to it today that has that kind of touch, Bobby, when he does the pop. It's it's not the same. But
Oh yeah, when he oh my god, that slap.
yeah. Well, Remy was another level.
Guru Terrence has that too. When he clears, I'm like, okay, that's how you clear.
Yeah, but no, like when Remy did it, it was a whole nother.
By the way, freaking Remy, man. I was watching some of those videos and I was like, oh, the guy's tapping. Let it go, Remy.
Oh no, that's part of the shtick.
I guess, yeah.
Usually, listen. When he would do this to me,
you do like this. Okay, now he do that.
There was a little acting going on.
You would hold it, of course.
I would exaggerate. Like when he threw me around, it was all real, but I would exaggerate.
I do it too to this day. I do it to this day.
Well, Remy wanted someone that when I first did there, I tried not to show any pain, and Remy didn't want that.
Yeah,
I was trying to show that I was his tough guy.
Yeah, it actually whenever I do it, it helps alleviate the pain. When I expel and I'm like, when I do that,
then they usually back it off a little. But the problem here was like when Remy would include everybody in demos.
Yeah.
But when it was time to drop the hammer, I was the anvil. And I could, I was the guy he crossed hands with the most. So I could adapt to his throw because he basically did stick jitsu. Constantly throwing you on the ground and stuff out of nowhere. And he and I were so much synced together. I was never worried about him hurting me. I was a little tenderized, but
I say it like this. I say I'm okay with pain. I'm not okay with injury. So whenever I'm somebody's okay, like take me to that threshold. But
no, I get you.
Yeah. All right, Tim, I gotta go. Thank you very much for this conversation.
All right, sir. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you very much. Any last words? Any last words? Any parting words about the
this is it. Tim signing off forever.
About the old school guys? What do we need to know?
It's apples to orange, and we don't know because we don't know. You can have your favorite. You can have your mindset, but at the end of the day, we don't know because we can't tell.
That's fine. That's fair. Tim, thanks for your time. I appreciate you, man.
See you later, sir.
Take care. Okay, cool. That's it. That's the podcast. That was, I think that was pretty awesome, actually. And listen, what's my final word? I am not going to fix Filipino martial arts. Tim's not going to fix Filipino martial arts. No single person is going to fix Filipino martial arts. I believe there's nothing wrong with Filipino martial arts. I think that humans will be humans, and any issues that I may express about how Filipino martial arts is expressed or how it manifests on social media, it isn't Filipino martial arts. It's not Filipino martial arts. It's fault. It's freaking humans, man. It's humans suck. And that includes me, I can get emotional at times. I can be hypocritical at times. I propose logic and calmness, and then sometimes I exhibit behavior that's contrary to that. And this is going to happen. And so what I would hope is that we can recover from our temporary disagreements. Some people I just don't want. I don't have time. There's a lot happening with the Filipino martial arts. I am at times incredibly busy, and sometimes I can seem a little bit dismissive when people have questions, and sometimes I can be overly generous. It all depends on the timing, but I try my best. And considering how many countries I've visited, how many systems I've studied, how many incredible mentors, coaches, teachers, and instructors have generously shared their art with me, it's just only really I can count with one hand the people that I would never ever associate with again. And that's a testament. That's a testament. Sometimes, guys, sometimes the vocal minority can seem like they represent the majority of voices in the Filipino martial arts. The vocal minority Oh my God, annoying little crybabies, but they don't represent their system. They don't represent the Filipino martial arts. What I would like to see more of is more of a bridge building between the so-called East versus West. I still get a lot of people from the Philippines commenting like, "Oh, that's an American mentality," or "That's a Western mentality." But the reality of it is that the Philippines and the Filipino culture has been influenced by Western culture, just as the Western culture has been influenced by the Eastern culture, particularly in the martial arts, for long enough that it's unfair to characterize, East versus West. In many ways, that's long gone. We're Filipino martial artists, whether you're in the Philippines or you're in Canada or in the United States. By the way, Canada is really, it's kind of special, to be honest. To be as a Canadian and to be completely non-biased about it, Canada is the best place to do Filipino martial arts today, other than the Philippines. Not to be biased or anything, but look who we got here. We got the man, one of the main men in Khaleesi Illustrissimo. We have a founding member of the Dog Brothers in Tuhan Phil. We've got the Boudoir crew. We've got level 7s in Balintawak. We've got modern Anise practitioners who fight in Dog Brothers matches. We have Sean Zerger and all the different systems that he represents, his throwdowns. We got the grit and the resilience of Quebec and the Maritimes and the Prairie provinces. We got the style and the finesse of the Torontos and the Vancouvers. We got it all, man. Canada is a destination for Filipino martial arts. Of course, the Philippines will always be the Mecca of FMA. So any of you guys who are studying FMA and you're looking for a way to get to the Philippines, safely and easily and get you a wonderful, wonderful experience, there are people in Manila that'll be happy to show you around. Let me make a suggestion, though. Pay them. They will refuse payment. They will say, nah, don't worry about it. Slip it in their pocket when they're not looking. Pay them. Because I know they do it out of love, and I know they don't want the money, but even if they don't need the money, I am certain they're going to put it towards a cause related to the Filipino martial arts that is going to help promote all of it. What? We got somebody from Sri Lanka. What's up, my man? Welcome. Sri Lanka. Yo, Asanga. Wikra Matunge Don Wick. Okay, clearly not your real name. But yo, do Filipino martial arts in Sri Lanka. I don't think I know anybody in Sri Lanka doing Filipino martial arts. A lot of guys in India, but Sri Lanka, stand up. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Let's go. Send me a message. I'll hook you up. Renee Thompson. Let me read this message. Some people just overhype their teachers' exploits. How true is that? Some people overhype their teachers' exploits, or whatever we call it, opening them to scrutiny or subjective discussions by outsiders. And they become sensitive to comments from people's opinion. I try to avoid over-marketing my teacher. I just make sure his teachings is not corrupted. His legacy remains in our organization. We focus on building his legacy, sometimes silently, sometimes a bit noisy. That's the man right there. Abanico Tres Puntas. Yeah. Much respect to you, sir. Much respect. Particularly with what you're doing in introducing the Filipino martial arts to the youth. Wow. That's absolutely incredible. You have my respect. And I'm sure the respect of all Filipino martial arts practitioners, because I believe that children are our future. So we need to teach them well and let them lead the way and show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. You get the point. Thank you. All right, Asanga. Cheers to you, my friend. You're the only Filipino martial artist in Sri Lanka. Spread the word. I'm sure Sri Lanka also has a stick fighting culture. Feel free to blend them to honor one and the other and make it your own. Do that. More power to you. And again, anything I can do to help, you let me know. Guys, thank you very much for watching my podcast. I think it's still called FMA Dumpster Fire Podcast. Although recently it's been less than dumpster fire. It's actually been quite productive. And I appreciate that. And hey, I want to open this up to anybody who wants to have a discussion with me, who wants to challenge my concepts, my opinions, my thoughts. Let's have a discussion about it. It doesn't need to be confrontational, as you saw here with Datu Tim and I. It could just be a proper exchange, and I think this is where we ought to be heading. So thank you guys very much for watching. So yeah, Renee Thompson. Awesome. I need a coffee. He's the best guy for that. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. And far be it for me to deprive you of the greatest intro, outro in all of Filipino martial arts. Have a wonderful day. Pugay po. Maraming salamat sa lahat. Peace.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.
You're finished!
Get up and never not go. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up.
Oh.